Famous and most popular of all Australian cricketers, W.M. Woodfull, captain of the Australian 11 and as such a national figure.
Believing that by means of the talking screen, with its amazing power to so lucidly demonstrate and explain most things, we can do something to foster cricket in this, our native land. We have cooperated with the Union Theatres Limited in the production of this film. The 7 players you will see in action were all members of the victorious 11 that succeeded in wresting the Ashes from England last year. They have all done very well in the years of cricket before the public. I should like to present to you Alan Kippack, called one of the most stylish batsmen in the game. Billy Ponsford, who has done great things in his years of first-class cricket. Clary Grimmett, the world's greatest spin bowler. Dan McCabe, the youngster who will go far in the game. Bert Oldfield, who vies with the famous Englishman, Duckworth, for the honour of being the most renowned wicketkeeper in the game. And last, but not least, Don Bradman, the possessor of more records than a gramophone company. Mr. Woodfull had something to say about records that have come my way. It must always be remembered that for a batsman to break a record, someone has got to stay at the other end. A batting genius could not get anywhere without the support of his teammates to hold the fort and keep his innings alive. Therefore, any plaudits that come my way for record breaking must be shared by my teammates who so efficiently supported me throughout. Cricket is a glorious game and is made the more interesting and sporting because of its uncertainty. Play the game for the game's sake is my advice to the youngsters coming on, and keep your eye on the ball.
Who is it that all Australia raves about? Who has won our very highest praise? Now is it Amy Johnson or little Mickey Mouse? No, it's just a country lad who's bringing down the house, and he's our Don Bradman. Now I ask you, is he any good? Our Don Bradman. As the batsman, he can sure lay on the wood. For when he goes into bat, he knocks every record flat, for there isn't anything he cannot do. Our Don Bradman, every Aussie dips his lid to you.
Don Bradman was the greatest cricketer I ever saw. In fact, I am quite certain he was the best cricketer ever to walk onto a cricket ground in any part of the whole wide world. I met him first in 1925, long before either one of us had ever been heard of in top-class cricket. Appropriately enough, we met in the middle of a country cricket ground at Bowral, a mountain town about 80 miles south of Sydney. He was representing Bowral, and myself, I was representing a little town called Wingelow. He batted throughout the day, which was about 4 hours play, and at the end of that he had 234 not out. And myself, with a very damaged reputation, look forward to meeting him again on the following Saturday. On the following Saturday, we met, and the gods of war smiled upon me, and I bowled him first ball of the day. So we finished that day with our honours even. I went on to travel through first-class cricket with him practically from the first time ever that he played on the Sydney cricket ground, and I watched him as a member of his side, and later on as a journalist. I saw him right through the 1948 season, and I would say that he had the greatest repertoire of aggressive, damaging strokes that ever a batsman carried. Bradman's batting talents were tremendous. Firstly, of course, he could see the ball, I think, quicker than any batsman ever to whom I bowled. As soon as the ball left your hand, you could see him moving to the position where he reckoned he was going to make contact with the ball. And he'd move aggressively and with tremendous speed. He could play an attacking shot savagely to all parts of the ground. It was part of Bradman's own tremendous competitive spirit that he felt his bounden duty to reduce every bowler to incompetency. As a 21-year-old boy in England in 1930, when he went on his first tour, Bradman scored 970 test runs in the series, a record which still stands and is likely to stand for a long time to come. He gave the Englishmen a taste of what they were likely to get for the next 20 years, he being so young. And the bleak situation for the English bowlers was relieved a little bit in the last test, the fifth test at the Oval, where play went on a rain-impaired pitch, and he flinched at one or two balls which got up round about him shoulder height. In the 1932-33 series, the bodyline campaign presented by the English attack under the command of Douglas Jardine presented to the cricket world the greatest crisis ever that it experienced.
4 years since we were in Australia. It's very nice to be here again, and pleasant to find that in spite of the depression, the big cities haven't changed very much. We haven't played a test match yet. In a month's time, like everyone else, I should be able to tell you a little more about our chances in the test.
The strong English team has a severe setback in their dress rehearsal for the first test against an Australian 11. The great Herbert Sutcliffe top scores in their first innings. That's 2 from Nat. And a fine drive for 4 off Oxenden. Finally, he's out for 87, caught by Bradman off the bowling of Ironman. England is all out for 282 in their first innings. Australia replies with 218, and then England collapses sensational. Freddie Brown, the baby of the team, is bowled by Oxenden. The 6-foot 6.5-inch Nagel bowls to Duckworth and traps him LBW. Nagel with 8 for 32 is Australia's hero, and England is all out for only 60. England's fast bowlers, spearheaded by Harold Larwood, bowling at terrifying speed, strike back. Bradman, who made only 36 in the first innings, cuts Larwood. That takes him to 13.
leg theory has been a well-recognised bowling policy for years. The theory means that the bowler concentrates entirely on the leg stump, and therefore, of course, the fieldsman can be set in the various places to make run getting difficult. Bodyline was totally different. Even a defensive shot was dangerous because of the fieldsman close in on the leg side. You could step away to the offside and hook, as Stan McCabe did so beautifully in the first test, but that was dangerous too because of the chance of snicking a catch to the keeper or being caught by the men in the deep. And if you stepped away to leg to try to cut, well, you ran the chance of being bowled. Don Bradman, due to illness, was unavailable to play in the first test. We missed him completely there, of course, but fortunately for us, Stan McCabe came to light with one of the epic innings of Test history. There he scored 187 not out, and really he pulverised the English attack. Had we been lucky enough to have had Bradman operating at the other end with McCabe, I'm certain that Bodyline would have died its death long before we decided to call it, or started to talk about it being Bodyline at all. England won the first test quite handsomely. Bradman was back in the side for the second test. He got a duck, bowled bows in the first innings. Then in the second innings, he got a beautiful century. Our spin bowlers won the match on a wearing pitch, and we went off to Adelaide for the third test, 1-1, and with our tails well in the air. Crowd reactions in Adelaide were extraordinary. A big crowd came each day to the match, and they viewed this bodyline theory with great hostility, and they let us know right throughout the game how hostile they were towards it.
England starts badly, but Leyland, Wyatt and Painter rescue them, and they total 341. Australia starts badly too. The pace of Allen and Larwood is too much for the Australian batsmen. Captain Bill Woodfull faces Larwood. Bradman's 8, facing Larwood. Bill Ponsford makes a welcome return to form with 85. And Oldfield is second top score with 41. That's a single to Oldfield off Bose, but he tries to hook a short ball from Larwood. The crowd reacts violently. There is fear they might invade the oval. Woodfull comes on to escort wicketkeeper Oldfield from the field. He takes no further part in the game.
I was the next man into bat, and from the time that Oldfield was hit, until the first ball was bowled to me, it would have been at least 10 minutes. The crowd reacted so badly that Harold Larwood, sitting on the ground way back in the distance, refused to bowl until the crowd cooled down. So that 10 minutes was given me to get ready to the situation. There were mounted troopers outside the fence over by the Richardson gates who had instructions, I believe, to ride onto the ground if the crowd became obstreperous. The result of all that was that the feeling between the two teams, which had never been really good, then became absolutely hostile. It was an Australian thought it beneath his dignity to talk to an Englishman, and vice versa. They didn't like the idea of talking to us either. So no wonder the stage was set for the intercourse of cables between the Australian Border Control and the MCC. Woodfull spoke to Plum Warner. Plum was the manager of the English side, and he was one of the really big shots of English cricket. He came in to apologise to Woodfull for the hit that he'd got, and Woodfull had nothing more to say than, look, Plum, there are two teams out in the field there. One of them is playing cricket, the other is not. Bodyline, without doubt, was the determining factor of that series. It was designed to cut Bradman down to size. It did that because Bradman's his average was cut down from a 3-figure average down to the 50s. So if that's what they set out to do in the first place, they did it without doubt, and therefore away they went with the Ashes.
Lee to Hammond. That's a 6. And so England have won the series by 4 tests to 1.
Bodyline was eventually banned. Both countries got together in their legislative fields and they decided that it was to the best advantage of the game not to allow it to be played any longer. They put it into the hands of the umpires under an intimidatory bowling piece of legislation, and from that time we've never had the slightest sign of bodyline in Test cricket. We get bouncers nowadays, of course, but bouncers and bodyline were as far apart as the poles. In England in 1934, the Australian team was led by Bill Woodfull again. We won the first test at Trent Bridge quite easily, but the second test at Lord's was Hedley Verity's match.
England captain Wyatt tosses and wins. The Australians take the field, and Sutcliffe and Walters open the innings for England. Wall to Sutcliffe. No run there. O'Reilly. And Walters cuts. There's 1 run. And another. Grimmett to Hendren. That's 4. Grimmett again. And Walters defends. Leyland bats beautifully for 109. Wall again to Ames, who goes on to make 120. England are 293 for 5 at stumps on the first day and go on to be all out for 440. In Australia's first innings, Verity's first wicket was Bradman, caught and bowled. Now he bowls to McCabe, and Hammond takes an easy catch. Verity goes on to take 7 wickets in the innings. In the second innings, Bromley is caught and bowled. That's his 12th wicket. Oldfield LBW, It looks as if England will win by an innings now. Grimmett caught by Hammond for a duck. Verity to Wall. What a marvellous catch by Hendry, and what a great day for Verity. 8 wickets for 43 in the second innings, and 15 wickets for the match. England has won the second test by an innings and 38 runs.
In the third test at Old Trafford, I got 7 wickets in England's first innings, and Patsy Hendren, who was 45 years old then, made 132, but that game was drawn. We were terribly worried about Bradman throughout the early part of the tour in the tests because he never played like the Bradman we knew. His feet just wouldn't work properly. He got out to the weirdest set of strokes ever I knew him to play. We watched him go in at Leeds. He got right behind the first ball and from the fast bowler Bill Bowes, and he whacked it with terrific power straight past wide of mid-on, the very best shot I know in the game, and as soon as he played it, you could have heard the relief in the Australian dressing room. The cry of, "He's right, he's back."
That Bradman century. What a different batsman to the Bradman we have seen in the first 3 tests. No hint of recklessness about this innings. He looks as if he intends to go on all day. Bill Ponsford reaches his 100 too, and the partnership adds 388, a record for the 4th wicket, in just over 5.5 hours before Ponsford is out. Bradman goes on to make 304, his second triple century in tests, and is finally out, bowled by Bowes.
Rain came at the most inopportune time when we had the game well and truly won, and that resulted in a draw. At the Oval, Bradman scored 244, and Australia won that match very easily indeed. So we came home with the Ashes. England, under the captaincy of fast bowler Gubby Allen, came to Australia in 1936, and Australia was led for the first time by Don Bradman himself. We lost the Brisbane test on a wet wicket, and on a similar wicket in the second test, Vose had O'Brien caught a slip for a duck, and then he had Bradman caught by Allen, close in on the leg side, also for a duck.
Vose to McKay. Another catch by Sims, and that's another duck. Australia has lost 3 wickets for only 1 run. Verity to O'Reilly. It's a big hit. That's 6. Sims to O'Reilly. And that's another 6.
An extraordinary thing happened for me in that test which we lost in Sydney on the wet wicket. There I had the great experience of becoming top scorer for Australia. I was still unconquered, 37 not out when I ran out of batting partners. and I lodged a complaint immediately with my captain when I went to the dressing room and to tell him that I wanted to be tried further up the list next time. And Bradman himself, his captaincy came under rather slight, sneaking, I would say, suspicion. He'd played twice in two matches under which he skippered the side, and he'd lost each game substantially. And there was an underlying element of tremendous doubt about whether he could lead his side successfully. He very quickly put that to rest, that rumour, when he won the three tosses in the following tests in Adelaide and Melbourne, and in those three he got 2 double centuries and 1 century. In the third test in Melbourne, he got 270 in our second innings when we made 564. We won that test easily. And we won again in Adelaide, where Bradman made another double century. So the series was all square then, coming up to the 5th test. The English fast bowler Farnes took 6 wickets there. Bradman, McCabe and Badcock all got hundreds, and we won that test by an innings and won back the Ashes. Back to England in 1938 under the captaincy of Don Bradman, where we met England led by Walter Hammond. At Trent Bridge, the first test, we saw 2 brilliant young English batsmen for the first time. They were the opening batsman, a very correct player, Len Hutton, and a less orthodox player, Dennis Compton. Both of them made centuries against us in this test. No doubt about the fact that the one memorable innings played there, miles ahead of anything else that we saw on the whole tour, was Stan McCabe's 232. Stan had become an immortal with his 187 in Sydney that you've seen. He played another great innings at Johannesburg about 6 months before this one in England. And in this one, he sort of summed the whole thing up to tell the world forevermore what a great player he was. I would say that McCabe was the best hooker I ever saw, and his cutting, where he transferred his weight from the front foot to the back foot as he back cut, was an absolute picture to see. Stan McCabe, there's no doubt, anyone who saw him at his top, and I saw each of those 3 great innings, would class him as the most spectacular batsman ever to be seen.
Right bowling. And McCabe steers it past gully. Barnes. A lovely back cut. Three runs to McCabe. It seems that this man alone can save Australia after England's huge total of 658. Sinfield. And McCabe sweeps. And there's his 200.
The Lord's Test was drawn, the Manchester Test was washed out, and we won fairly comfortably at Leeds. So we went to the 5th Test 1 up, and the best that England could do was to square the Ashes, which they did. That test was made famous by the world-shattering score of Leonard Hutton from Yorkshire, who got 364 in the innings, which made history. He broke Bradman's record, which had stood at 334 since 1930, and so he held that score. In fact, what's more, he still holds it.
The Oval. And Walter Hammond is delighted at winning the toss for the 4th time in a row. Maurice Leyland backed brilliantly for 187, including a stand of 382 with Hutton. And Hammond himself chimes in with a solid 59, but it is Len Hutton's match. And the young opener takes a score to 364, a test record after batting for over 13 hours.
The World War #2 finishing in 1945 saw Australia facing up to England in Australia against Walter Hammond's 1946 side. Bradman was again the captain, and the Australian team appeared to be absolutely a team of young hopefuls, mostly unheard of. But some of them, of course, now have become Australian heroes. For instance, Sidney Barnes, Keith Miller, Arthur Morris, Don Talon, Ray Lindwall. Those names are household names, but in 1946 they all had to make their reputations, except Keith Miller, who had gone well towards making his in England with the services side. In Ray Lindwall, at last we had a truly great fast bowler, a bowler to compare with Harold Larwood. The similarity in their actions is quite remarkable. Australia won the first 2 tests in this 1946 series in Brisbane and in Sydney, where both Bradman and Sidney Barnes scored 234 runs exactly and went on to win the match for Australia. The Bradman after the war was, of course, not comparable with the young athlete who scored all those runs in 30 and later in 34 in England. He'd lost a lot of his speed afoot, and his aggression had dropped quite a lot. But with those few disparaging remarks, I tell you that still he was the best batsman in the world.
Sydney Cricket Ground, December 1946. Hutton and Washbrook open the England innings, and Miller soon has Hutton in trouble. Bill Edrich takes 4 from a full toss by Tribe, and he tops scores for England with 71. Don Talon performs brilliantly behind the stumps. Here's his sensational first catch. Compton is caught off McCool's bowling. In the replay, you can see Compton's edge go to Johnson at slip. Johnson fumbles, but Talon dives backwards and takes the catch. Compton is out for 5. McCool again. And Hammond is caught behind by Talon. Ian Johnson to Yardley. And Talon has another victim. Johnson to Peter Smith, who offers no stroke and is given out LBW. England are all out soon after for 255. Alec Bedser. And Sid Barnes cuts. Edrich to Barnes, and Barnes hooks. Bedser to Miller. 4 runs. English leg spinner Doug Wright bowling to Bradman. The Don starts very quietly. Then the tempo builds up. Bradman and Barnes add 100, then 200. They add a third 100. The scoreboard has kept working overtime. After batting through most of the fourth day, both batsmen score double centuries and go on to make 234 each. The partnership adds 405. England's chances are not helped by a thunderstorm towards the end of the Australian innings. Australia bats on after the rain, and Bradman declares at 8 for 659. England need 404 to avoid an innings defeat, with the prospect of a very nasty wicket. Ian Johnson to Hutton, who bats brilliantly but briefly for 37 in the second innings. Edrich scores a fighting century, but McCool and Talon are again the main destroyers. Last man in is Doug Wright. Bedser lashes out, and the Australians prepare to gather souvenirs, but it's a false start. Talon takes the final catch. It misses out on a stump. Australia are 2 up in the series and looking forward to the third test in Melbourne.
Australia won that series 3 tests to 0. And Bradman led Australia again against India the following year in 1947, won that series. And during that series, he scored his 100th century in first-class cricket, the first Australian ever to do so.
Bradman, what a welcome waits for you back home.
Australia went to England in 1948, where Don Bradman made his final appearance in that country. The 1948 series I saw from the very friendly position of the press box, and I had the great good luck to travel with the team on board ship to England. And there I assessed the absolute importance of those 5 weeks that an Australian team had together on board ship. There they got to know each other absolutely. They had those long days on board ship, and by the time they got to England, every man knew his teammate as well as one could get to know another man. The difference between now, the unlucky boys now who get on a plane here at Mascot and who 24 hours later, having sat beside 1 or 2 people at the most in his side, arrive in England and probably have to be introduced to some of the players whom they've never met before. They were very lucky people in those old boat sailing days.
Trent Bridge, an English
British crowds get their first view of Australia's new fast bowling combination. Miller and Lindwall do the early damage, but Bill Johnson, with 5 for 36, disposes of the middle order. Hard start, caught by Miller for a duck. England are in desperate trouble, 8 men out for 74. But Jim Laker, Surrey's spin bowler, bats like a veteran of Test cricket, 63, before the innings closes with a total of only 165. Bradman, the legend, looks older, but proves he is as great as ever with 138 runs. English captain Norman Yardley to Hassett, who supports Bradman with a careful century. The Australians take their total to 509, and England's chances look bleak. England's second innings, and Miller is barely bumping them down. Lindwall is injured, but Miller bowls enough bounces for 2 men, and England soon lose Washbrook and Edridge, both caught behind. The big fast bowler is in a great humour, although some of the crowd don't seem to get the joke. Compton finally takes charge. A lovely 4 through the covers off Miller. Compton ducks under a bouncer. Compton's 184 is the innings of the match. They can't save England from an 8-wicket defeat. Bradman wins the toss. Although Barnes is out for a duck in the first innings, Arthur Morris is the backbone of the Australian batting, with a chanceless 105. Barnes makes amends in the second innings with 141. And the English opening bowler, Coxon, playing in his only test against Australia, is no match for the mighty Don. Miller, as spectacular as ever, lofting Yardley just out of Hutton's reach at mid-wicket. And then tries to lift the same bowler out of the ground. Evans is brilliant behind the stumps, but Miller just gets his foot back in time.
Australia went to the final test at the Oval in a position where they had 3 wins to 0, and therefore all that had to be done so far as they were concerned were just the tidying up operations. One of these was Bradman's situation himself. As it turned out, all that he needed in that last appearance at the Oval, where he'd carried out so many double-century efforts in the past, was 4 runs to give him an average of 100 runs in tests. As it was, Eric Hollies bowled him second ball for a duck, leaving him with a test average of 99.94. In the history-making Bradman era, which began in 1928 and finished in 1948, many great names appeared on the cricket scene. The whole era was completely dominated by Bradman, who was like that giant at Rhodes. He just bestrode the whole cricket world. Bradman was a man apart.
Don Bradman, now I ask you, is he any good? Don Bradman, as the batsman he is certainly plump good. Tate and Law would meet their fate, for it's